Morning. Just wait for the, there we go. All right. Sandy, how are you doing? Is it just Sandy, and is that you and I? Are we doing a solo read? Did you happen to catch all of last night? Probably not. Who would want 8 hours of balls? Non-stop balls? How are you doing today? Kelly, how are you doing? So I thought, well, obviously I'm going to finish this one up. And then, where's his notes? Where's the notes again? Right, absent. The Anatomy of Integrity. Thought-provoking, for sure. I'm going to read some more like that. 4 of you in here now. Well, have you guys had a chance to watch everything from last night? Probably not. The readathon. Truth and all. Good morning. Fell asleep listening last night. Good. Well, hopefully I didn't disturb your sleep. That's not good. Listening and to and researching last week's testimony still. Excellent. What have you come up with? Anything you want to share? Startling stuff here this morning, going over Darren and I'm so angry. Yeah, good guy. Sorry, but gonna lose him. We lost him. This is terrible. All across the country, this is going on. People are quitting. It's a revolt inside. Uncle Blazer. Morning all. Middle of going through part 1. Well, I don't know. Hang around. Participate in some active chat. Definitely thought-provoking. And I'm glad that, I got you guys to help me fact check and make sure that I'm on the right course. And if I'm not, then... So yeah, Mills was in there, and he did say. But interesting that Mr. Bernard didn't hear it, Sergeant Bernard. I like, I feel comfortable calling people who retire distinguished and with integrity and morals and ethics. I have no problem calling them by their rank, their retired rank, but other folk less so. The dirt that is exposed in Darren's testimony is rich. There's a lot in there. A lot to, raise questions. Definitely interesting, ever fascinating. Even fascinating, for lack of a better word. Absolutely. It is fascinating. How come all the ones telling the truth are the ones retiring, leaving, or relocating? Relocating, yeah, maybe. They're definitely on leave. You have some, but a lot just retire. And then you've got the ones that are also facing possible code of conduct, other issues additionally, possibly. And so they just retire, because then that's the way to avoid all that. That's the RCMP tactic from top to bottom. And you go off and you can get a consulting job and something else. Very sad indeed, because we don't want to lose these people. What are you left with if you lose the good ones? I don't know. Like this job. Anyway. No, it's not anyway. It's disgusting. Nicole Elizabeth, we'll start again. And you spoke a bit uh, about the post-event support that you received. And again, to the extent of what you want to share, I'm wondering if you can tell us a bit more about, I know it took a few days for you to get relieved. About 2 weeks. Like, nice way to downplay it, Nicole. Right. And I understand that there was a delay in someone reaching out to you initially. A delay. Is that what you call it? Okay. Um, I'm wondering if you can go a little bit more into detail about when they did reach out to you. What was offered? What has been offered? So, I got a call. My memory's a little foggy on the exact details, but if you don't mind, I'll just broadly recall how it flowed. I believe I got a call from Sandra McNaughton the Wednesday evening. I don't know Sandra very well at all, and I can't recall what we spoke about. Blank. And then I got a call from Deepak, and I can't recall if it was either that night or in the morning. And then I got a call from Health Services. I believe it wasn't until sometime either Thursday day or Thursday evening. I believe it was in that order. It was kind of cascading towards that. Sorry, I'm just glancing over at your stuff. Thank you for the digits. 13 of you in. Hello. Good morning. Soon to be noon on the East Coast. Cascading towards that. I didn't speak with Sandra at any point after that I may have. I don't remember. Deepak and I had good communication. Deepak I had good communication with. Actually, Deepak went above and beyond. I have to say, was the kind of a bright spot in the whole thing. Really. I thought my nurse was Tracy, I think, and she was good to deal with. We were quick. We quickly had the debrief organized. And that went off Friday without a hitch. That was good. I can't recall the details. I know I have it in my casebook. I have an administrative kind of at my desk. I remember my dealings with district, not overly critical, but relatively kind of troublesome and inconvenient. Ooh. Ouch. I don't recall getting a lot of help from them. Sometime into that next week. So this is now a full week after they started talking about what the relief schematic would look like. But I can't recall how much about that. Really, I was barely hanging on at that point. I generally recall that it was sometime late that second week or into the next that it was Corporal Mike Carter, who was a traffic member from the Valley, that he came to take over. Well, into work the next day, lose your friend, and yeah, anyway, be there to deal with all that. I know that was short-lived because he started calling members. When are you coming back to work? So we kind of had put the kibosh to that. I know his replacement was Corporal Rogerson, and I know Earl blank. Earl's a great guy, and he was there for most of it, like months. So yeah, it was tough getting started, but it took a while, but it seemed to work after it. And then there was a steady stream of members from C and O division and N division, I think, different, the Ottawa crowd, but rotating in and out. So you guys remember the interview with the Enfield down in Enfield? Trudeau's personal bodyguard was coming in and filling in Enfield, one of the bodyguard detachment, writing tickets. I'm like, that seems a bit of an odd one. Caper, good morning. Peter, howdy. And the supports that they've offered since then, would you say that they are what you needed, or you need more? Are they sufficient, adequate, meet your needs, leave gaps? So I was already, just by, the hard miles I had on at that point, I had already not been a stranger to therapy. Although I wasn't in therapy at the time, I knew that I was going to need it at some point. Wise. So when early on, Tracy, the nurse, sent me an email with a list of people who they were encouraging you to reach out to. They always want you to go to certain people. That would free up their time to speak to members involved in the critical incident. So I looked down the list and, there's Jeanette Kennedy. Oh, she's in Stewackie. I called her, and that's worked out great. Beyond that, I don't have a complaint because I don't know what they would do for me. So I'm not crapping on health services, but they haven't really done anything for me. I mean, there's nothing being, I don't know. They were polite about the whole retirement thing, They were good. There was no pressure. I brought it up. Sure, they're happy to have you go, sadly. Sadly. There hasn't been any pressure to return to work? No, there was no pressure to return to work. I know some of my guys were early on, but I believe it wasn't health services. I don't think. I think I would say that they did well. It was a big help because in the health services world, you had Mark Rose, who I later learned was involved that day as well. With a C, Mark Rose, I believe, who heard certain radio transmissions, possibly. And Stephen Power, who was a teammate of mine in the critical incident side. They're both in that mix, in that world. So I believe that probably kept people grounded. I believe that. I'm not saying that. I have no idea if they did or didn't do anything, but I believe that their presence at the intersection of a lot of things going on was probably a good thing for you to have. Regular members who knew the membership affected. And so I'm just guessing they had a positive effect. I know Mark was certainly very helpful as I transitioned out of the force. I'm just going to look over my notes for a quick second. I know you've talked about the relationship you have with the Colchester Detachment, working relationship. I just wonder to what extent, if at all, you worked with municipal forces. But Truro, again, was complicated. So I was a constable in Truro in the late 90s in Millbrook. So their leadership, their senior leadership were constables in the street. So I knew them well. So I've known Chief McNeil and Deputy Chief Hearn since they started because we're all a same vintage. However, over the years, the relationship, I wouldn't call it strained, became a little complicated in the fact that I'll give you an example. When I returned to Truro after many a year absence at different postings and major crime tours, I wouldn't say that, or I shouldn't say that. We did have a few issues with major crime because we were mandated to audit some of their files. Ooh, that's always going to bring up hard feelings. So it didn't have, I believe there was some tension pre existing with some RCMP members reviewing some of their files. But when I became sergeant in 15 and went there, I believe I didn't get right at that year, but I believe it was 16. So Millbrook First Nation is the only detachment in the entire province that doesn't have a school in its area. Because the community of Millbrook is actually, sorry, I should back up. Pre-1995, Truro Police used to police Millbrook First Nation because the old part of the reserve is entirely located within the town boundaries, much like it be no different. I don't know if you're familiar with the Sydney area, Member 2. Member 2 is within town limits. Millbrook is the exact same, but however, they treated the residents very poorly. They had no relationship, and when the monies became available under the tripartite agreements in the early 90s, Millbrook community reached out to national policing and they were given their own small detachment, a 3-man detachment. So Truro always had animosity with Millbrook because they lost that area. Contract money. Anyway, so then that's the prehistory. And then, some of the major crime stressors about file review and whatnot. Fast forward to when I'm sergeant in charge now, and they know me, and as well too, I should say this too. Truro has a very colored and checkered past with Indigenous people, primarily a prominent Indigenous woman, Victoria Paul, passed away in their cell block due to poor care. So historically, they've had a very, very bad relationship with the Mi'kmaq people. So when I took over, I believe it was in the spring of 16 that my mindset was ahead of the fall school return. Because we didn't have access to schools, we could have went into town. All the students in Millbrook are bused into town limits at the elementary, middle school, and high school levels. I had decided out of a courtesy that I would just ask them for permission to have one of my community policing members attend the school intermittently throughout the week to say hello, to continue Indigenous policing delivery program, program delivery to our Indigenous students. I know that the middle school and the high school in particular also had Mi'kmaq rooms, and there's Mi'kmaq resource teachers and support staff that work there. So it would have been very complimentary to continue our policing service in some fashion. So I met with the chief and then deputy chief and Inspector Hearn, who was the operations officer. The three of them, and was told no, unless they could, what's in it for them? So we have this very negative. Things were negative after that. I said, well, you can't stop me. I can still go, and I may. And it was an FU, very much sort of meeting. In the end, I didn't end up forcing the issue, although I did complain to Staff Halliday at the district level, which went nowhere. Come to find out that the other Danko, Kevin Dunleavy, he's Dunleavy, but anyway, was good friends with the chief. And I was just laughed at, basically, right? But then fast forward to these, so all that I can say, I would say that the working relationship with the Truro Police is very negative and very competitive, entirely based on the two managers don't like the RCMP. Have made pitches to both county and the First Nations to take over policing duties in an effort to grow into some sort of regional force. So it's very negative and very politicized. And I'm certainly aware of Dave McNeil's distasteful comments during the week when he was specifically asked not to comment in poor taste. Based, in Heidi's memory and whatnot. And he still did anyway. Anecdotally, I do know that they weren't prepared. So from other people, that they're not prepared. The claims he's made aren't true. They weren't prepared. Their membership has spoken out anecdotally to a lot of other members. Dave was in the basement working out when this was all happening, and they weren't prepared. They weren't ready. And I think if you ask most members, and I'll quote Barry Martin, RCMP, one of my most trusted members in the force, actually in my unit, he said, what? So then we have 2 or 3 dead Truro cops? Because they're just, they have a reputation as not being really switched on themselves. Right? So the whole thing was I consider it to be a publicity stunt in an effort for him to try and discredit. And again, nothing to do with this, but it's just local publicity stunt. Really, it's just distasteful, and it means nothing. I don't consider, I was led to believe that Chris Leather was in contact with the chief that day. I was led to believe. I was led to believe that they were briefed up. But somehow they're portraying something different. So I'll leave that for other people to sort out, Wise. It's nothing to do with me now. But it's just, the comments and behavior are typical of the politics that were already existing before this incident. Hello, Linda. Nosy Scotian, Caper. You also mentioned that COVID had changed things in your detachment, and you spoke a little bit about how you split your staff. I'm just wondering in what other ways have that impacted just policing in general? Well, it had quite a kind of an office process and administrative effect more than operationally. These guys were used to, shift work and a lot of on call. Really changed. I think these guys liked it because our office was closed to the public, so we didn't have the front counter. So the dynamics of their job changed a bit for the good way because at a lot of times, especially in First Nation communities, people will look over and see cars and come down and lodge complaints in person. So that stopped. And the entire community was fine with that, but it did stop. I, this stuff is I don't know. I've heard because I don't live in an RCMP area, but I've heard that post COVID, a lot of the offices are now still closed. They just don't let people in. You got to call and make appointments and all this other nonsense, which is balls. You should be able to walk into your police station 24/7. So I don't necessarily agree. It's a good idea to close the front. And so I think the guys were happy with that. They weren't happy with having to do this car cleaning, like every night, like the last night, every 3 shifts. Everybody was done at midnight. You clean the cars, and now the incoming guys were on call. So the on call hours increased. So they don't think they liked that too much. They were, I wouldn't say fatigued, but it was even a month and a half in. I think I for sure was the first unit to make to make a change like that. We were the first to close our doors for sure. And yeah, we basically split the team in two, and like so from a command and control perspective, it worked really well. The objectives of COVID at the time. Objectives. We surpassed them. Like, we were triple safe. Again, I was criticized by the district. Well, how come you didn't wait for us? Like, petty stuff. And again, that was a small compared to the usual BS from them. So, yeah. So I guess it was a mixed bag with the guys. They were happy in one sense about closing the office per se, but probably bummed about the schedule changes a bit, increasing on call. Okay, and I think the only other thing I wanted to ask you about is one of the things we understand is there are there complexities with policing rural areas and the fact this many of the locations of the perpetrator traveled through on April 18th and 19th were very rural areas. And so you shared your experience as a police officer has been in First Nation communities, some of which are more rural than others. But I just wondered if you might be able to share what you like about whether it's your experience, how you're policing rural communities might be different than urban communities, or give any context that you might think or that you think is important around for us to consider or to know from your experience, both living both and policing in rural Nova Scotia. Hello, Albino and Bickleberry. They're still working on that, according to the June 3rd update. I don't think he's going to speak. You'll get a paper submission. All three of them, Chris Leather, Lee Bergerman, and Darren. Well, I can't really explain that without being somewhat critical of the force, broadly speaking, in the fact that there are success stories, pockets of successes around where I know my unit was, probably your unit is. I know that there are some good things happening, like in the Digby area, because I'm down there a lot for the protest work. There are pockets where things work well. The difference is where those places work well is the fact that you've got really engaged management at detachment level, I would say, and you have a manager that's alive to the issues that the members have to be proactive in the community as well as reactive. And that's the difference. So for instance, when you look at Colchester, and I'll just say that, I'll just use them as an example. They would be a negative example. Again, I don't want it to be colored with my pre-existing issues I've identified with. Well, they're the easiest example to explain. When you have a district so big as the county, and actually I should back this up. I was a constable in the Truro area when the counties were stood up from old little detachment areas. And right away, that model, the district policing model, how it's employed by inexperienced NCOs, in my mind, an obvious and fatal flaw to the system. So I'll give you an example. In Colchester, for instance, how they get their money. And I don't want to pretend I'm some sort of expert, but I know that's 90-10 kind of scenario. But because they're absorbed standalone communities that had budgets assigned to them, and I'll use the example of Tatamagouche and Stewackie town, the towns of Tatamagouche and Stewackie, immediately have their visible police officers redeployed, reduced in force, otherwise pressured to not be in the community based on call volume. So the inexperienced or the out of touch leadership would say, okay, I have a district of 20 cops in Bible Hill, 5 in Tatamagouche, and 3 or 4 in Stewackie. I'm going to make a schedule. It's all on one big schedule. And some nights there's nobody on in Tatamagouche and Stewackie because the numbers aren't representative of it's not an unfair ratio. So what happens is you get areas that you've never seen police officers. You get areas where officers don't know the area. They don't know the road systems. They don't know where the troublemakers are. They don't know where their friendlies everywhere. So you have a bunch of these members now in this big super detachment that are coming and going. They're overworked. They have their bosses don't pay attention to things like wellness and overtime and do I have enough on tonight? They're behind in their files. It's these are busy areas. So the area is the time to drive is long. Cheryl, good morning. So you have members that are now set up to just barely get to the call, and they're already backed up a call because of the driving time. They never really get to really dig into the communities. So its district policing is as far as rural stuff is a complete failure. The last places that seem to flourish are the places that small contract places like Pictou Town, the First Nations, probably your small contracts, Digby towns, anywhere we have small contracts that are dedicated, that budgets seem to still flourish because their members are geographically a little closer to home. They don't stray too far. When you start messing with the dynamics of moving bodies around these large districts, you get gaps. People don't know where they're going. They don't know anybody. It hasn't been good. And having been in this division my entire time, I've seen little places like towns like Canso. They probably don't see an RCMP member twice a year because there's no detachment there anymore. Or if there is, it's barely open, right? Well, but then you want to open your desks, right? And you want to have 24-hour policing. So it's really, again, it goes right back to what I was complaining about earlier about, our management being out of touch. It's so far removed. I mean, I'll just pick, our favorite person to crap on. And again, I don't want to sound like it's slanted, but Staff Carroll, I mean, here's a guy, I'd known Al for a long time, but he never spent any time in uniform as a rural GD member. He was either an O division or C division or prime minister detail. Interesting. Didn't know he was on that. Whatnot. I know he did a stint in Cheticamp as a corporal later on, but he hadn't been on the road, in a 40-year career. He doesn't know what it's like. He doesn't know the pressures. He wouldn't know all the things I mentioned above. What can go wrong in a large district. He would be not able to take from his intelligence or education or whatever. I don't know anything about that. I just mean he wouldn't have a keen understanding of what really takes to appropriately staff that area, to make sure that the members knew the roads. They knew where the bad guys were. They knew where all the friendlies were. They knew the best places to make roadblocks. Yeah, roadblocks. So his pre-existing understanding of what's important, his priorities would never consider those things. His priorities would be something other than member wellness and tactics. Mark's very sound operationally, but you've got a new boss now who's been away from the tactical, like road world for 2 decades. But these are the people that, when these events happen, if you look at in the room, like the room I saw when I came back and I was mad, with the exception of Dave Moran, who was a new incident guy, and Dave's a prince of a man. I look at these faces, and there's not one person who's worked a shift in a detachment work in 2 decades. Not one person. He's talking about when he went back to Bible Hill, right? After this all went down. Wow, that's not good at all. These are people that are radically out of touch. And I don't mean that to run them all down, but these are people that are so far removed that they don't have an understanding of the area, what it takes to police the area. They don't have an understanding of how the members feel, how long it takes to write up a file, how long it takes to drive somewhere. They don't have an understanding of how complex the road system is and where the choke points are. It's almost as if you've taken someone from headquarters in, like, the RCMP is bad about taking someone, who could spend 20 years in headquarters here, never arrested a person in their life, and all of a sudden they're in a detachment commander in Canso. No wonder we got slaughtered. We're getting slaughtered. No, I don't mean that. That's a fact. We need, you need a pedigree like I'm not saying mine, but you need to be on the road to understand it. You have to be on the road to understand it. I can tell you right now, with what happened here, all these ex-GTF2 guys, unless you have the pedigree of being on the road, you shouldn't be allowed to look after us when these things are happening. Wow. Okay. You guys know what GTF2 is? Joint Task Force 2? Military. Special Forces. All these ex-GTF2 guys. Okay. I've seen some military. GTF2. That's fairly... Give me a complete stranger or an ex-soldier, a GTF guy, to decide what's going to happen. And we have, I don't know if it would have saved Heidi's life, but I can guarantee you the outcome would have, our deployment would have been different. And I'm not even an expert in that area, but you can tell me there's people, that's like asking someone, it's like asking a nurse to do brain surgery. Like, it's wrong. How do you spend your entire career not on the road, yet on paper you're somehow qualified to make critical event decisions, making, like, entrusted with that? Like, the people should be, I'm upset. The people should be outraged when they find out, and again, I don't want to sound petty, but these guys are out of touch and it cost Heidi her life, right? I don't want to sound melodramatic there, but that's how I see it, right? These are people that I have watched firsthand in my brief tenure as long span of history of the force, my brief time with that management level. And I've looked around at people that not to take away from their intelligence or educational level and whatnot, but these are people that are out of touch with modern tactics. These are people who do not have the pedigree making decisions. I'm not saying the decisions I made were any great glowing example, whatever, but when I realized that I was alone, I took my leadership and my rank seriously, and however small my decision making affected, I like to think that I led those boys well for a brief period. Well, that's not happening anywhere. Not just everywhere, right? Out of touch, most academics. Yes. Fuck the intelligence, man. I'm just surprised that the mention of GTF2. These guys aren't just soldiers, they're super soldiers. And sounds like a bunch of them. Like, it's not happening for me. I'm not being led well, and I haven't been. I don't think, Mark, you're being led well. Not to take away, again, not to take away from these people, but it's just a fact. And it had everything to do with experience and time. I'm a fisherman. We say time on the water. Like, if you don't have your reps in, you're not ready. Again, I don't mean to sound too passionate about that issue, but it's what's hurting us. That's why we're getting slaughtered in Moncton. You have people that are out of touch. Well, are rifles really that important? Right? I mean, well, guess what would have been important this day? An understanding of where the road systems are. And, we need a greater understanding of that level, right? Where is everybody? Or who do we have here? Maybe you should do this or get everybody together. Like, where was that briefing? Like, just people are just out of touch. Anyway, sorry about that. I don't want to sound like I'm ranting. I guess all this time has passed. I'm still very upset about it. I'm very upset about it, actually. Don't apologize. We appreciate you being so candid. It's upsetting, right? It's upsetting because, yeah, I've lived now entirely of the what ifs, even if what ifs invade my own. Should I have, should we have all left with Heidi? Oh. Should we have done things, should we all done different things, right? And the sad part about it is there's not one person above me in rank that can comfort me and tell me, because they're all too chicken shit to say I did a good job or a bad job. I'll give high marks for Lee Bergerman and Chris Leather. They both came to see me. Paul McDougall, my boss in the district, I think he came with Lee, and he didn't say shit to me. at the 1-year anniversary of Heidi's, he just sat there and glared at me because I was still off work. So thank you very much, right? So that's management there, right? So these guys, I don't have a lot of time for them, right? But I would rather find me some full-time ERT guy from Ottawa, fly him down in 2 hours and put him in charge. At least he'll look at the map and make decisions that are tactically sound, because we're not getting that from our management cadre right now. We're just not, because these guys are concerned about the community initiatives. They're concerned about themselves, their own career. They're concerned about looking cool. Like, there's nobody concerned about the people below them. There's nobody concerned about public safety. Really. There's nobody concerned about how we look and public confidence. This stuff needs to be said in this process, right? It's wrong what happened. Anyway, sorry. Their public image has been destroyed. They chose to do that. Okay, no comments. All right. Hello, Joanne. Welcome, welcome. Linda M. I don't know that name. Sergeant Dara? Bible Hill. Okay. Retired. Canso sounds like a lovely place. Oh, Sad. Hello, Sad. All right. I don't think I have any other questions. I think you've covered everything, says Wayne. I have. Actually, I just want to go back to one thing, to your community policing. Obviously, your model you've created at your own detachment seems to be leaps and bounds out of any other detachment that I've seen, because just what you're saying is you basically engaged your community. This is what I'm getting from you. More than you've seen in other departments, like I would say so, personal level. Extra resources during events, basically making inroads in the community. Not just yourself, but obviously other members that's under your control. Yeah. And that's really the first time I've heard it so far in my interviews with other members from detachments. Are you able to comment, like, in any maybe models that could be put in place? Because you mentioned a few district models when you're taking the smaller detachments out of the smaller towns. That's obviously an effect, obviously, on the community policing aspect, right? Yeah, it had a drastic effect. So I've been in charge of the provincial protest response in different iterations since 2011. So I'm done now. But I would have been called the NCOIC, non-commissioned officer in charge of the non-commissioned officer in charge of the DLT division liaison team. I'm a national structure on what is called the measured approach. Oh, God. The language. I'm the SME in the area. For example, we've dealt with the protest stuff. So the model that we've distilled in the last decade is a very effective model, but it's entirely predicated on proactive relationship. It's entirely predicated on that. And it's done from an opinion. So we had to think outside the box and say, okay, how can we get this done? Well, it was this conscious thing that we had to do to say, this is actually more important than resources to respond, because the more time, I mean, we have a lot of little sayings of it, because we become so very anecdotal in kind of justifying why it is we're doing things. So what happens is, so when you're in charge of the unit for this long, a decade, I used to going to places and dealing with crusty staff sergeants who don't want to spend any money with their members and don't want people running around their backyard, and they're very proactive on over this. What is it that? I don't understand why people have to constantly piss. It's like a pissing match all over the place. Power struggles everywhere. Like, do people not have these? Some of these guys, I'm worried about what they're packing. So I became very good at showing value about, the more time and money you spend now, the less it will be. The less it will be this and whatnot. And it was, I would say, it was still a struggle, but less so. But when we delivered our liaison program across the division, it's simple math. The more time we spent, the less of a protest it was. And in fact, if we had the mindset, it's better to be involved with these guys from the semi-controlled partnership on the front end than respond after the fact. Well, some of these old guys, they just, oh, well, we'll go down there and we'll talk to them. Aren't people just allowed to protest if they're not doing anything bad? But they forget. They want to discount the fact that you spent a month talking to these guys at the time. So we were, I was at odds with Al. The Alton gas protest was very protracted 3-year protest in Colchester County that Al inherited. I went through 2 commanders as my role as the DLT, the old commander, and the new commander, and we ended up cleaning the place out, tactically. But it was seen as a success in the DLT world because a lot of people, I even shielded it from Al, that it was planned arrest, the visible arrest of these Indigenous female activists out of the hut was engineered by us. And these guys, I couldn't trust them, so I didn't even share their plan with them. And it went off without a hitch, right? So there were still holdouts, Colchester being one, where they didn't see a lot of value with the DLT model. But I can tell you, it paid for itself at multiple points. The Moose Cull up in Cape Breton was a flashpoint of armed protesters, and we went in. And so the proactive engagement model works. And there's a bunch of stuff to that. And we used to teach in the course, in the old days, we'd we delivered this course all over, Chilliwack, BC, Yellowknife, Ontario, everywhere. So the measured approach stuff works, right? There's a lot of resistance. Seems like the older demographic of the leadership you are, the less likely you're into that, right? So, but that's what it is. So I just took that approach to my community. That's really where it comes from. And it's a very human resource and body intensive, but it pays. I mean, we have some 4-day powwows, and I mean, not one complaint. And the community population in the daytime would be 5,000 or more. And I mean, not one complaint. A traffic fender bender, because there's a lot of cops there. Nobody's there to arrest you. Half of them are unarmed in red surge, but it's very, very positive, proactive event. That's why I said, I mean, Heidi Stevenson excelled at that. She was a favorite at those events, right? No. It was, but that's what it is. It's the proactive stuff. And that's not the bigger district. The bigger the district, you can map it out. It's not happening because, well, it's a death by 1,000 cuts when you're not equipped from the start, and you start seeing the district as what it's not, and stop caring about the remote, far-flung places in the road system, whatnot. You leave yourself open to not being able to effectively respond, right? Like you should. Every member of that detachment should know that there's a friendly. There's friendlies in the community. If things are going sideways, that the firemen will back you up. And there's that's not happening anymore. Hasn't happened for a long time. Have I said anything off base here? No, says Mark. So yeah. So I took it very seriously because I was doing it as my side job. Right. No, and it makes perfect sense. I just wanted to try and explain a little bit more for somebody that's going to review this transcript down the road and go, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'll just give us the audio. I knew that they were going to dish out the transcripts. That's it. It's so simple that in my mind it took a hard time to even explain to people, because they're like, well, that's it. You just staffed up. Well, no. They were staffed up with some orders to do some things and to be very community minded. But it's not to stand around like your security guards. It's to interact, right? You're basically paying people to interact with people. And after a while, actually, our powwows, it's popular. People, they would call ahead of time. Hey, I want you to work if we can. Because it also became fun for the members too, right? Because they know they're there to not just be security guards. They're there to actually be part of the experience, right? So if you can somehow change that, that's the future, right? But good luck, right? Well, Mark was his best friend. Is his best friend. Sorry. You dug up a photo, did you? Well, like I said in the beginning, this is an information gathering. The more we can get to present into different sectors, that's you, everybody, families, whatever, sectors of this, to get recommendations out. Oh, probably pre-written, all scripted. The better it is. So I know you've spoken a lot, and I have no more questions, but this is your opportunity now to tell us if you've got any recommendations that you've thought of, or anything you want to address yourself, or anything that you think we should look at. This is your time to present any ideas that you have. The glare. It's glaring, is the experience, the capabilities of your command. If you don't have, I don't care if you went to the critical incident course 3 times in a row. If you don't have a long pedigree of operational experience, or almost exclusively operational, you have no business commanding people in unfolding critical incidents if you have no business there. I really hope that, I have no doubt that a lot of these people are intelligent. Dumb the language down. There's no need to go into goo. Just say, if you don't have experience on the road, then probably shouldn't be there. It loses people. They love this stuff. I just don't understand. They program them. And in fact, I don't believe that there should be anything more urgent than re-examine who we have in command positions, to prevent this happening again. I don't want to, again, I'm coming from the almost uneducated perspective because I don't know anything about what you're uncovering and the issues. I can only speak from what I saw that day. And I can tell you, and I'll repeat it again, there are no limits to how offended I am, how it was handled management-wise. I clearly blame them for the flow of the day. And I can say that because I've dealt with those guys at different points the last part of my career, and I can see obvious gaps where when you are disconnected from the road policing, where the actual rubber meets the road. When you're that far detached, people don't seem to make decisions that fit the membership on the road. That has to change. We're dying because of it. Heidi's probably, I don't know what you're going to find out, but maybe it's not too much of a stretch that Heidi's not here because of that. I don't know. I hope it uncovers something. But you can't, we don't let nurses operate on brains. You can't have people that don't have experience in what's going on the road making these decisions. It's not right. It has to change somehow. It's not right. We're getting killed across the country because of it. Whether and whether the decisions that they make did or they didn't make or made a year beforehand about whether it was carbines or training or this or that. I mean, some of these guys, they don't know. They didn't know what the principles of rapid deployment are, about how teams are formed and deployed. So if they don't have if they don't have an experience and wealth of knowledge, why does the RCMP give them authority to make decisions about that? It's not, it's it's unsound, and it's, look at what it cost, and it will happen again. Won't be as big, God forbid. It's never this big again. Like, you'd never want that. But something will happen again. Some bad policy put in place by someone who has no experience, but by virtue of their education or the fact that they did well on a board or whatnot, or the fact that they just the nature of how they move people around, it's wrong. We should talk about the promotional stuff more. You could spend 20 years building in your rank, and your rank is not, shouldn't entitle you to a position to make critical life or death decisions. And we're failing because of it. Anyway, I'm angry still. Morning, JJ. Or afternoon. My apologies, afternoon. Very understandable. Very understandable. If there's nothing else, okay, I will turn off the tape. It's 1:45 according to my watch. And we don't have his notes from that day. That would be an interesting read. I'm glad, he definitely speaks about a lot of the problem. But I've read too much to say that this is just operational issues and management issues, and maybe somebody was drunk, and there's something very, very awry. And even reading his statements, it's clear that he has questions too, pretty serious ones, about what happened, how did it happen, what he saw even. And they don't even give him the benefit of giving him the pieces to kind of put together that puzzle, because they don't want anybody to know. And what the fuck are you hiding? Would be my question. But I think you can look a lot bigger. And the RCMP is so famous for just chalking this shit up to mistakes. Just believe us, it's mistakes. But you make mistakes all the time, consistently. You even build in avenues so that you have an out. Why do you do that? They have everybody convinced, I think, that, hey, so that if it happens again, then they can just say, well, see, just like they told us before, it's mistakes. And again, and again, and again. And I don't think a lot of this was a mistake, as in, there was something very seriously awry. The fact that he mentions JTF2 is very bothersome to me. Why is there special forces ops people running stuff? Why is it that certain people, such as himself, are kept out of the loop intentionally? Would be my assessment. Because he's not alone. People circumnavigated chain of command. That one really bothers me. The fuck, man? Everybody knows there's a way that you do things. You got other police departments getting involved, calling people, and they're circumnavigating their corporal, going out and doing things, and their corporal shows up and they're like, what the fuck is happening? I don't, what are you talking about? My guys are out. Yeah, they've been out all night. Huh? What? Yeah, no, they've been out. And why didn't they talk to me? JTF reminded me of that photo I spoke of. I'm going to grab a coffee. Let me know some of your thoughts on what you think of these two statements. It's absolutely true. Some of the things that he says. The politics, I can't understand. I can't understand this pissing match between police departments. I mean, it's just fucking ridiculous. Power. I don't understand people. Clearly, I'm not assessing people correctly on certain levels. It's like, I have to be big. I got to be this. I got to be that. Like, no, you don't. Biggest people, funnily enough, are usually, and the smartest people are the ones that don't say it at all. Then you know. Walk humbly. Those are usually the people that, it's the same as very wealthy people. Very wealthy people. Usually never show it. Ever. Like people with B's. And I met a few. One moment. Hey, True. Hey, oh dear. How's it going? You have to clean up all this stuff. But again, you can't even rebuild it. I don't think. Because it's so vast. It's just such a boondoggle. You can't. You got to start anew. Just start small. Start small. Hey, Julia, official timekeeper. I'm going to also compile. I think that we're up to what, 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours. Oh dear has been doing some really hard work, and as always, and so I'm going to compile her half hours where she's compiling all data and using that, and then to build kind of a more broad picture of what was happening in those early hours for sure, and then moving. I think she's moving along still. Are you still working away at that? I'm sure you are. So I thought what I'd do was I'd take those first 2.5 hours right now. I'll put them together in one, because she's got half-hour segments. I'll put it together in a block, in a 2.5 hour block, and we can stream it and just kind of look at it, see the what's going on there, point out things, look at it critically. Afternoon, Green Bastard, not critically in terms of Mr. Deer's work, but if there's things to be added or glaring anomalies that are going on down in there. Just can't come up with video for the next one. So it's just going to be audio and text. Well, I mean, I think I don't think you need the video per se, right? I guess that's just kind of icing on the cake. Yeah, there is so much. But this is what they want, right? But the thing is that we collectively are really doing some major damage. I'm still reeling from Lori Ward and her behavior. And NPF even just kind of bailed out there. They don't even want to touch this one now. We'll see what happens. You know, many things afoot. And I'm probably only aware of like 5%. I'm not talking about the information. They're still releasing warrants. As in, I don't know, I haven't had even a chance to really look at them yet. Oh, there's a bug on my screen. Removing redactions from stuff. Still doing that. We're coming up 2.5 years. And they're still not wanting to. Oh, you like M&M? The M&Ms? Peanut? You like peanut M&M or the chocolate? I feel bad for Bernard the morning of the 19th. Oh, I can't even imagine. And things aren't making sense to him. That is very clear. That's not tinfoil. That is absolutely 100% true. Things aren't making clear or aren't clear to him. He's really scratching his head. And I'm disturbed. I was talking to somebody this morning about that. I'm disturbed that it appears as though his counselor is telling him to forget things. That's not psychology that I understand. If you remember it, that's the way you're supposed to be. And kind of look at it and deal with it. You don't try and forget it. Whatever your mind has already forgotten, which may surface and does surface later on, is your own psyche protecting itself, protecting you. But if you have things memories that you recall, you're not supposed to forget them. Weird. So you have more questions. That would be very positive to all of the interactions that you have with family and friends and your day-to-day living and enjoyment of life. To be more confused and more irritated, more upset, more confused. Doesn't seem logical. Nothing I've ever heard before, but something I definitely have seen in the story before. Thinking of the fact wife spoke of seeing the Shuby video, she had to ask her husband if he was driving a black Suburban. What's bothering you about that? That he could have swapped vehicles. I guess she would assume that because his personal vehicle is that blue car, which Todd sent a photo of. And I'd forgotten that photo. So he moved the car at some point because it was parked in a different location than I recall. It was parked on the 224 northbound. Somebody took it facing northbound, south of the crash site. His car was parked. And then on this one, he's over on by the ramp. So he obviously moved his car at some point, but that Shuby video important. Rather than talk about it, just forget. Suppress feelings. Is his doctor an RCMP doctor disguised as a doc? Who knows? I mean, I'm not trying to be tinfoily, but it's not something they haven't done in the past. And they give you a list of people, so they're pre-approved. It's not like you can go and talk to whomever you want. Why? Talk to whoever the fuck you want to talk to. If it makes you feel good, you got already a therapist that you've got a good relationship with. In fact, I think he mentioned that in the first one. If you have a relationship with somebody already, then it takes a lot of time to build rapport, trust with a new therapist. May or may not be personality conflicts, etc. So why not just save everybody the time, the money, unless you want to control information, not to be tinfoily. She saw the first batch of thugs roll up and drag Heidi. I think, yes, the video was suppressed to an extent. I don't know if it's still, I think it's still out there. Pretty sure it's on YouTube. I'd like to know what is in Addie McCallum's notes. Where was that? So they knew about Joey's body in the back seat. They absolutely knew about that 100%. Here's the picture. These notes, he says that he wrote them afterwards. If I'm recalling correctly, Bernard said he was writing it at the time, which is interesting. And we have Stevenson's body here, though he talks about the dirt and the grass, which I'm not quite understanding still. Maybe you guys can help me with that. And this part is disturbing. What would be there? We had the people scrubbing around on their hands and knees on the 22nd. Equally, he talks about how he sent a member over on the embankment of the river, and the search teams were over there, which is not a common picture, but I think I can bring it up if need be. Spent casings. Let's see. He talks about the rounds. I don't know if this is McCallum's notes. We do not have Darren Bernard's notes. Interesting. And all McCallum's actions that day were specifically Fisher's on. Seemed very interesting to me. Here. Fire department arrived to put out fires. Observed different spent casings on the ground. 9mm, other, and carbine. Live rounds, live rounds. Okay, so that sounds to me like 3 weapons. I never have heard mention of a carbine, ever. So where's that coming from? A carbine being used in Shuby? Handgun? Handguns? If they saw the 9mm, that automatically makes it a possible cert investigation. You do not then oh, not my program. Yeah. 5 days later, destroy evidence. Oh, here's Dunlavy. Right. Okay, I knew the name. Speaking of destroying the cars, because you already know that it's a possible cert investigation. You don't destroy the evidence. But they did. Squirrel. Darren want to call MCC and ask what the hell and where the hell. This one, please. This is going to help so many people, and it's not A-tipping, like A-tip. Sure, we got to use all the avenues possible. This one. Let's stop chasing our tails, speculating, wondering what ifs and this and that, the other thing. If you get all of the dash cam footage with all of the audio, you'll get all of the 911 or the RCMP logs, even the ones that are missing. You won't get the talk groups, I don't think, because isn't that all text balls? You'll get the GPS locations in a sense, right? Because you can trace the route. Be fairly easy, A to B. You'd know where all the members were. You'd see how they were acting. You'd see the end of Portapique Road, which would then answer about Blueberry Field. You'd hear everything. And in fact, I think, though Todd is not online, he may have that answer. I should see if I can contact somebody today that would probably know too. The dash cam footage, to which they have 100%, is uploaded real time when in internet cell service area, I believe, with the timestamps. So, and everything should match, right? Everything should match. Somehow, I think it won't. I don't think even the fucking the radio logs will match. That cert report, that big gigantic cert report. Angela, I forget the second person on the internal RCMP investigation. She already said that the Colchester logs are different. What she transcribed versus what Ottawa supplied are different. Dash cam footage. Get it? Demand it. Put it on billboards. Stand outside. Phone them up. Send them messages. Send politicians messages. Send it to media. If you ask for that, you'll get many of the answers and uncover the corruption, at least on a level. May get some of what was really going on. May. And there's no reason to keep it in many cases. Showing a picture of a fucking road is not traumatic. Is it? Media won't dig for that. Well, media does what media does. Covers. Same with McLeod and Hubleys. Yeah, big style. You'll get it all. If that is the Mazda parked on the side of the road down at the big stop waiting and Hubley drives by, oh, that'll show up. All the little clips down there, the full tape that the media or Frank is apparently looking for. There you go, cucumber. Too busy eating crayons. So, did you catch that? Because I don't know, I didn't see your comment in here before. Did you catch that Bernard said that many of the people who were in the Bible Hill debriefing, many of the senior people are ex-JTF2? That one's got me weirded out. Elmsdale Sobeys, then back to Big Stop. Yep. I need gas because I have just a little less than half a tank, but I have to keep driving around. I got to go back for gas again. Not get gas. The first time, oh, there's a gas station right there. No, I'm not going to that. I'm going to go to a different one where HRP is hanging out all day, where Brown and Melanson are, just like every scene. I've missed much of the MCC crap, wondering if they explained why RCMP went on the public channel. No. That hasn't been addressed at all, and I think that's a big clue. Because frankly, at least to my knowledge, so please correct me, I don't think they've even said boo about it. So, you'd think that they would, because they like they're grasping. Isn't that something to say that their radios weren't working? But they don't mention it. So, if they don't mention it, maybe it's that Mexican bean stuff going on at the beginning. And then that lays into question, because I believe, if it's just a possibility and I'm laying it out there, that then if the tapes are questionable, the Picto tapes are questionable, which I did give evidence of why I had some questions about that. If the Picto tapes are questionable, the transcripts are built on questionable evidence. So that makes the transcripts questionable. Uh-oh. You caught that, but most ERT members, JTF2, CSOR, but I know that I find ERT leadership would be sitting in an interview panel, but I find odd. Who's ERT sitting in? Which members are sitting in on ERT members are sitting in on interviews? I thought he was talking about staffs over in Bible Hill and stuff. Jerry and Co. MCU. Driving around looking for cucumbers. Maureen final call back, and I asked about did you get a response? Roads aren't traumatic. And they've already introduced audio, which means it's admissible. Brown Melansons would be quite interesting. Yeah. I'd even like to know the color of their hood, frankly. Is it brown? Is it silver? Is it gray? Is it black? What color is the Ultima? Anyone hungry? I have Glenn going out for snacks. The sandwiches got mentioned even in Bernard's stuff. The food. It's the food. If ever I'm hungry, I know where to go. Get a job. She promised to ask and call me back next week. Where have I heard that before? Don't know. Rewatch as parts of McLeod and Hubley. They testified at the foundational documents. Transcript of the radio is out of order. Well, again, Bernard's statement, there are things in there for sure that how can I say for sure? I think I'm not able to find. I'm going to go through it again and highlight every portion where he says a different color, and then I'm going to go through the radio logs because I think there's things missing. Maybe we can look at Rose's statement. If you give me a minute. At least one passage in there is very interesting. Mark Rose. Jerry. There's Jerry. Here we go. Handwritten member notes. Let's have a look at that. I'm not sure if he indicates in here. He definitely does in his interview. Let's see. Jared. McLeod. I like Jared. They're not exactly handwritten notes, I don't think. But maybe handwriting's changed. Shortly thereafter, Sergeant Rose heard a male voice over the radio state, "Mail is okay." No other details were provided, and the transmission was abnormal. As a result, Sergeant Rose asked for the speaker to identify himself. When challenged, there was no response. I don't believe I've read this. Sergeant Rose later learned that Constable Heidi Stevenson was down and her pistol mags were taken. Sergeant Rose speculates that he may have spoken to the suspect, or he could have spoken to a paramedic that was dealing with Constable Morrison. But why would that come over Heidi's radio? But we don't have the logs because that's not in there. So what about the logs? The lack of listening to members are very apparent. Refuse to feel defeated. Yay. The strength. See, that's strong. That's strong. No, just keep on trucking. The lack of listening to members. Is members listening to the radio? I factor in other people who are say things like, and I'm sure that's where you're going with that, who are like, I didn't hear those things on the radio. Or, and in addition to, I said these things, and those aren't reflected in the logs. The two of them together build kind of a picture. Yeah. Where's the audio? But more importantly, how about we get this one? Then we'll get it all. I'll tell you, you will cause a shitstorm if people start really outcrying for that. That one will be like, they will shit their pants. They know. If people start asking for that one, because could you imagine? Let's just say, hypothetically, that there has been doctored, falsified evidence introduced into this one, for argument's sake. If you were able to prove that, that would be a big problem, number one. And to falsify all of the dash cams to run in conjunction with all of the audio transcripts, et cetera, and the GPS logs, that is going to be an impossible feat. They barely can do timestamps or missing frames or cars that appear to be there, but not really. I think that they would have a severe struggle with it, would be my feeling on that. The OCC and CIC do not listen to the members on the ground. Mm-hmm. Why are they not asking? Good question. Maybe drop Patterson a line. Drop some of these lawyers a line. CC a lot of people. Drop a mass emails. I think that's one of the I don't know any of this garbage, but I think I set up some section on the Discord about mass emails or something. Mass email list of email addresses. There it is. Mass email. Why? See, this is how yesterday I put this in the wrong section. Third. Okay. I don't know. Obviously, I think my channel is My Discord thing is to delete this one. I do not delete other people's messages, by the way. I have, well, that's not true. I did 2 very early on about a picture. So the reason that this is here, mass email address contacts, which would be maybe somebody can start putting together a list. We can have a fairly extensive CC list. Kind of like we know, and all of you now know that we know. Where's the dash cam footage? And going out to everybody, politicians, media, RCMP, MCC, family lawyers. Somebody in there is going to have to respond at some point. They can't all be quiet. Would exert a lot of pressure. You run that in conjunction with standing outside wherever the MCC decides to have their buffet for the day with placards that say, where's the dash cam footage? Letters that are getting fired off. Drop in some American contacts. Perhaps they may be interested in the media down there. Some alternative media, Rebel News, American, YouTube, or worldwide alternative channels that you like. Here's our situation. Very interesting up here. We need some answers for the 23. If a male voice came over Heidi's radio, then it can only be one of 3 people. Chad, suspect, Joey. Or as Rose suggests, a paramedic. I don't know if he speculates as to the time. I can't remember his interview off the top of my head. I don't recall. It may be in there. So Chad's outside banging on the door with his rifle buried in the woods, which of course makes a ton of sense. With a broken arm and whatever else. He's decided to do the Hyderoonies of a rifle and then stand there unarmed because he's very concerned that he's being hunted. Banging on the door because he's a good guy with no yellow stripe on his pants. I think we'd be able to tell whether it was a paramedic dealing with Chad fairly quickly. Because EMS didn't deal with him right away. Lawyer should be asking, not asking. Risk manager missed much. Keep saying that there are 3 members at 135, even though they have repeatedly said that there was 4. That is just one instance. Where's Lily? Did anybody hear of this name before? From documents that they've, let's see. From documents, if you back, how am I trying to phrase this? What was that article I sent? did the name prior to, what date is this? May 3rd. Did the name, one moment, Neil Galavan, does that ring a bell with anybody? I don't remember hearing it before. It was an article. That came out. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. You'll see in a moment. I'll have to go back and look at warrants previous to May. But I don't think, again, I'll have to do checking. I can check actually probably, yeah, I could maybe check right now. May 3rd, the name Neil Galavan appears previous to this, which would mean that the media has access to warrants before you do, before the families do. Because I only stumbled into this name because of yesterday, when there was a huge dump. How many warrants are we talking about? A lot. 5, 12, 13. Let's see. Sorry. 3, 5, 12, 13. 8 plus 1, 2, 3. In excess of 21 warrants. Again, I think most of that is just warrants that they have issued before. I suspect there is maybe 1 or 2 in there that are new, with some names unredacted. I haven't come across this name before. Yeah. But did you know about it previous to this article? I believe that the media has access to warrants. I believe that media has access to everything, funnily enough. They already proved that with the tapes, but I think they have access to a lot of stuff from their own home, and they're just spinning narratives on behalf of the RCMP. Rebel won't touch 1819 with a 10-foot pole. Yes, you do. Funny. Funny, haha. Playing guitar. Let's see. Was there a dump on May 3rd? Or just right around May? Excuse me. May 19th. Nope. Okay. March 6th. Somehow that man knew that the rifle was going to come back to. Excuse me. Canada. You read all about him through MCC documents? Okay, so that would be not from the MCC documents then. unless media, again, had access to MCC documents beforehand. Because I don't... when was the first dump of MCC? Okay, possible. Yep, it's possible. Then if it came, there's obviously dumps. I think they started around. I don't even have a date when they started. Definitely going April. Possible. Yes. Everything is timed. Well, you know that. Everything is timed. Look at, they were, the latest one. Bash McNeil the night before he appears. Then go back and rewrite it. The bashing articles are good to archive when they come out, because they usually get changed. I was just looking back at the bashing McNeil article. CBC wrote one as well. CTV did. Bell. RCMP exclusive contract. That makes sense. Global is the one that is more of a wild card, but they're the deepest, I think, of them all. I CC Tim Houston in many emails that were to MCC. Our premier does not answer constituents. That's good. Yeah, we got to get a list and just more organization. I'm not an organizer, as you can tell. I have a difficult time finding things or turning on microphones. The O drive. I do. I think the moratorium of destruction is always just that just means stick it on the O drive, and then we can say, oh, we destroyed it, or it was an accident. No, they keep everything. They're hoarders. Possible. There were definitely funny shit going down. Big stop. I have a video sitting, and whenever I go on to whatever the hell this thing is I use to do streaming, it has like my list of videos, and there's one in there called Let's All Look at Big Stop, because I was going to see if we could work on Big Stop, but there's too many issues. D49 and Big Stop. I'm trying to find the thread that will unravel it. Cobequid is one. Big Stop is another one. Fishers is another one. There are some ones that, I think if we pull out a bit, it'll start to unravel. D49 is a huge one, though. They really spent a lot of time just with one little bullet. A lot of people swearing out affidavits, Bose, Rua, the Tech, because they have a very difficult time. And I would say, though it's something I've got working on the back burner. Todd's here, so he can help answer this one. Okay, and I'm going by memory, so hopefully my memory is serving me well. Now, so if we read this one here, this is just different passages from different documents. We get the identification of the weapons that were used. Hubley drove his RCMP cruiser or whatever back. He was armed. Hubley, okay, which is from the video, but it's just good to have it here in quick form. Hubley Sig Sauer 226 pistol, chambered 9mm, right? Okay, the important thing is, and that was what he used. D49 is a 9mm, was determined to be a 9mm. It is the bullet. Through the confusion, there's two headshots, and they kind of play games. One is shrapnel in the head. The other one is, or that's what they kind of say. And the other one goes, it's a through and shatters in the head, right to left, leaving fragments. So both are fragmented. So they kind of play a bit of a shell game, is the way I've been reading it, between what is actually D49, which one is it. But if you read it enough, it appears that it is the through shot. Now, they say D49 came from Heidi's gun. Okay. And we have no indication that Wortman did, in fact, actually shoot himself with Heidi's gun. Or they say, sorry, let me back up a moment. They say definitively, because there is a right, I'm trying to remember this, there are 3 lands and grooves and right twist on the fragments, whatever they've been able to put together enough. They say definitively enough that it does not come from Hubley's gun. Okay. And then they say it's possible that it came from Heidi's gun, but it's possible that it could have come from any number of guns. I think that if you know enough to rule out Hubley's gun, you know enough to rule out Heidi's gun, because you would just test it. Because obviously they were able to say Hubley's gun wasn't used. Therefore, you can say Heidi's was or was not used. Do you follow what I'm saying? I think they aren't trying, they're trying to keep from people that it is an unknown weapon that killed him. Bullet could have come later when video at Big Stop from guys at truck said there was gunfire shooting a dead man. Well, you have enough evidence to rule out Hubley's gun, which is a 9mm, meaning you can probably rule out other weapons. So then you would just need the ballistics from any 9mm that was at any scene. But specifically Heidi's is very important, because if it's not Heidi's gun, then whose the fuck's gun is it? I thought after some of the YouTube started covering the blatant lies about Canadian convoy, I might see some traction, so I started being noisy again. Thank you. God bless you. ERT only uses 226 in 40 caliber as per their documents. Well, why are they putting that out? Is there something I'm missing? It appears to say chambered 9mm. Chambered fort 9mm. I also gave Stephen Ellis Paul's book. Stephen Ellis Paul's book. He said he's going to read it. Okay. I can't comment on other people's stuff. Only what we do. Could Darren Bernard's approach could have been the future thinking for the RCMP potentially could have soothed some past wrongs, but they believe they are superior and don't need to change. There's no way that they can rebuild this one. 20,000 people strong plus. Absurd. They're still picking up pieces from past recommendations, which they never followed. You're still talking about radios, and you said that you had the radios down in Nova Scotia fixed 2017 from Moncton. Come on. Now you're still talking about it? You see the built-in excuses they just leave around? Or they claim Hughley was carrying 9mm to keep you away from the larger caliber rounds found at Heidi's car. 40 caliber is classified as larger pistol round. Yes. But would they not be definitive? Could they? So, okay, you can answer this because you are very well versed in weapons. If they can definitively say that, let's just say that, yes, what they're saying is true, which I hope. Hughley was shooting him with a 9mm, and they can definitively say it is absolutely not his gun. Can they not definitively say it was not Heidi's gun, or it was? Because it additionally is a 9mm. 3 lands and grooves with a right twist. That seems like pretty good ballistic information to me. The larger caliber one is beginning to bother me, and the fact that Bernard doesn't seem to remember seeing anything. But he does say to the firemen, don't use high pressure hoses. Carbines come in 9mm too. Okay, what carbine does? Not an RCMP carbine. MCC doesn't say the word ballistics or dash. Doesn't say the word ballistics or dash cams. I'm not quite following. They do say the word ballistics. It's in their FIS reports. Dash cams, no, they do not speak of dash cams because they don't want people to look there. If people started looking at dash cams, started asking for them, the whole thing falls apart. SOC shot. Maybe SOC shot in his cruiser at 8:45:22 in the morning. Possible. To definitively say that the perpetrator / SOC is Wortman, first of all, is a complete that's just illogical. And looking at all of the information to say that it is one person, that seems hard to believe. Ruger PC carbine. Todd can comment on that. I'm not. Todd, care to enlighten us as to They could tell exactly what pistol shot what rounds after a big stop. They had Gabe's weapons, including Heidi's and Hughley's. Yeah, so, okay, 3 lands and grooves and a right twist. If you can rule out this one weapon, then you can certainly rule out her weapon, is my thinking. So then we're left with, well, who shot the weapon? That it appears as though a shot went through his brain. Nobody said that nobody still, even they said they didn't, he didn't kill himself. They never said that. They said he made a motion. One of them said that he made a motion as though he were going to do that. The other person, of course, said that he turned it on them and was going to try and drive off. Melanson statement at MCC is absolute nonsense. Heidi was down, so we were able to go to Sobeys. Quote. This is a quote directly from the statement. No 9mm. Can you comment as to the 9mm Ruger PC carbine? Does such a beast exist? Or not that I'm questioning albino. I'd like more information about this. And I don't believe that's a weapon that's involved here. Melanson's statement to MCC is absolute nonsense. Quote, Heidi was down, so we were going to go to Sobeys, but then we heard Home Hardware, so of course we went to the big stop to look for him. What? Whoa, if that's a direct quote. Oh, no. I think they were at EHS with Morrison and McLeod and Hughley. They are, let's see. No, I don't know. I don't know that. I'm not. That's an interesting one. I'm filing it away. No 9mm found at scene. ERT uses C8 UIR, which is shorter carbine, same as JTF, and it's 5.56. Right. So I'm not seeing a 9mm carbine being used in this anywhere. But please, if you have more information, albino, then where's the 9mm carbine coming from? Who would it be? Who has the 9mm carbine? Shooting him through the head. And it's difficult to go from, if it is Heidi's gun, in fact, would be rather difficult, I'm thinking, even though Bose did say would not instantly kill him. I'm thinking it would be very difficult to drive around with a bullet that has traveled through two hemispheres, both hemispheres of your brain. This is going to be a problem. I don't think you can just get in the car and there's no blood on the shirt. No, he has a C8. I'm pretty sure it's a RCMP issue weapon that he has. There's RCMP issue weapons that seem to float around. There's mention of multiple RCMP 9mm handguns Wortman had in his possession. Don't know where those went, of course. Maybe it's one of those F and F type scenarios. and Melanson go to Big Stop to look for him, even though there's been no mention of Big Stop yet. They are there, sit there, and they happen to watch. I think you can see their car in the background, and one of the Big Stop witnesses talks of a car that's been there for a little bit in the back parking lot. And of course, they are there shortly there. We know for sure shortly thereafter. But I think they were there. Plenty of 9mm pistol caliber carbines on the market, but none recovered. Well, okay. And again, a carbine would be difficult to shoot yourself in the head sideways with. I don't know. I'm just thinking. Especially if you have pistols, it probably would be more ideal to shoot yourself in the head with a pistol. Right to left. But Britney Stevens heard at 8:45, 22, 8 were dead, and he was shot in a cruiser. Oh, yes. You're talking about Ferrero. Yeah. Well, didn't they say that was, they chalked that one up to social media? I remember reading the business about the cruiser, and I was like, what the fuck? On Highway 4. I'm like, eh? But the number again, you see? The high number, 8. Which goes back to that, oh, balls, did I knock it out? No, here. No, I did. Is this it? Oh, shit, I did knock it out of my tray. Oops. I thought I had it here. Fuck me. Whatever it was. What was it? 6 bodies. 4 male, 2 female. 3 scenes. Non-arson. By 3 something in the morning, floating around in the command triangle. That's a problem. No, I thought Wortman had one. They would have only known about 4 deaths at 8:45. That's what I'm looking for, because I did that in the earlier video, and I've showed that there's multiple. If you piece different things together, you come up with command triangle right at the top, coming from information from Briars, I think Briars and Halliday, going all the way to Leather and Campbell, Moser, the real Don Moser, coming from CIC, the following details, basically. 3 scenes, 4 males, 2 females. Oh, the indoor-outdoor part is specified too. And it's impossible. It's that one that I did on the lunch hour during one of the live streams for the MCC. I went through it during one of the live streams. I don't think I'll be able to bring it up, but let's see. No. This one's going to take a few minutes. TPS was, yeah. Yes. That's that Britney Steves or whatever. Steves. But didn't they say that was coming from social media? I'm not saying that it's not something I've dismissed at all. It's just I'm looking at the explanations, but it doesn't work with what they said. Morrison goes to EHS after being shot. Cloud Hughley testified on video that they were at EHS before going to Sobeys and Big Stop. And I'm hypothesizing that Brown and Melanson were there as well. I don't think it's a stretch. I really don't. Brown and Melanson are at almost every single crime scene. Wow. Even though there seems to be a lot missing, I just pulled up old pictographs and things that I've put together. I have a fucking lot of information. I'm sure compared to oh dear, I don't have very much, but is this it? It looks to be the most plausible one. Let's try this one. Oh shit, it's not it. Looked like it. What is this one? Oh, the awards. Yes. Mm-hmm. Little meetup to figure out how the grand finale would play. Yes, I'm going to. You raised that Ettinger. I don't know anything about any of their statements. I'm going to look. So Ettinger is, you say, detachment commander, Enfield, at 10:30. Crazy question: is Dave still alive and well? No idea. See, I was saying that to somebody this morning too. It's very sad because obviously people are getting caught up in the stew, as in being falsely maligned, even just by questions, right? If people say, oh, well, did so and so do something? If I ask questions of somebody, that's that somewhat disparaging on a person's character? Yes. So why not clear this up by having people like, here it is here. I think this is it. Motherfucker, it's not this one. Where did it go? When you ask questions of somebody, these people should have the wherewithal, first of all, but obviously I know the RCMP keeps them very locked up, to come forward and to say, listen, I don't like the fact, I don't want anybody having a question about me. Here's my story. Here's what I know. So then you don't have to look over here and ask questions. Good. So get people like all of them out. Let's have a free for all. She said SOC in the car. I sorry, missed a lot. Have to catch up. Hello, Blue Nose. Hello. She said SOC was shot in the cruiser. This you're speaking about the Truro stuff, right? No, this is upsetting me. Oddly enough, 2 years later, the RCMP still haven't received the bags of guns Lisa claims he loaded up. He claims to have transferred into Weber's SUV. There seem to be missing firearms. Oh, I wish I could see better. I don't think that's it. Let's try this one. April 11th. Stevenson. $10:45. Mills driving down the highway. 10:49. 9:49. No, yeah, the same thing I was coming across yesterday. The timing is fucking fast, man. Morrison broadcast. Shooting over to East Hans channel 10:49:05. $23 seconds. Speedy. Yeah, I'm sorry. Enfield Big Boss. Detachment commander. From West. Dave Lilly advised 4 kids are being taken care of. There are 4 deceased. Lilly will go to hospital with 4 children. Lisa McCulley is likely deceased, and Lilly knew one of the family. Okay, so this is coming from logs, right? Which, again, and that's 12-ish. However, in the warrants, Lilly is referred to as being with Grund in Portapique. I don't get how that goes. But the appearance, I wish I could find this. I don't even remember what video that was. If all of this was done in AI, then I could figure out what the fuck when I was talking about it. That's not it. Calvin Baird in Tav all night. Ettinger, Enfield boss, calling shots 10:30. Heidi receives zero info night before. Oh dear, did kids go to the same hospital as Lisa? Which hospital did Lisa go to? Which hospital did Chad Morrison go to? The implication is that they went to Colchester. I don't believe that, in fact, is true. I did see it in a document I'm sure I did. I saw it in a document the other day that they weren't taking the two patients. They had not taken the two patients. They only took McDonald. In fact, then where did the kids go? All patients released. Well, it's possible the kids obviously came in after. Yes, they would have, but then been released. No mention. No, she did. Said he was shot. He shot at a cruiser. Oh. Okay, I'm gonna go back and look. Steve's. Yeah, I kind of discounted that. It's not very good. Witness Shubanaki said he had arms full of guns transferring between vehicles. I don't remember mentioning bags. Heidi Stevenson left in dark from shift start, expected to direct her troops. I did read something about Morrison going to New Glasgow. I don't think Lisa, the stuff I'm looking at says Lisa went to Colchester. In fact, they both went to the same hospital, I think was what I read. Morrison and it was in that dump. They released a lot of health documents, seemingly kind of boring stuff about lockdowns and stuff. It was in there, in with that dump. I was trying to find it again the other day. Lily was saw something at the hospital he wasn't supposed to, and that's why he's being thrown under the bus and disappeared. Maybe. You got the kids' clothes. Turn those over to Brown. Brown, Lansing, very rare. They're just everywhere, you know? Busy dudes. Busy. Busy. I don't think I can find it. Those of you who were around that day, you know, at the lunchtime, and nobody could answer the question. Nobody could work it out. It's a riddle. It has no solution. Not good. Not good at all. Anyway, it says Vardy's statement that West. Okay, sorry. A couple of things here. That message from West at 109. Right. It was 3. It goes from the series goes from 3 till 3 until about 8 something. 8. So there are people that are shot. They're not in homes of arsons. 3 scenes, 4 males, 2 females, and the inside outside business is also dealt with. And it put it together, you're left with 2 males inside of a home by 3:35. And that's the only conclusion. And that's from the data going to the top. So how the fuck, who is that? 2 males inside of a home at 3:35, and they know about it, dead? And it continues all morning? Calvin Baird, 0. Okay, sorry. Message from West. It says Vardy's statement says Colchester from Lisa's interview. And, likewise, I'm not being argumentative. I'm just laying out the other, different pieces. Addie McCallum's statement, Addie McCallum's notes say that Arsno, who's a new character in this, will go with Lisa to the hospital. So now I got Brown and Melanson at the hospital in Carol's statement. And I think it's Carol's statement. And Arsno there too, because he's supposed to stay with Lisa. But according to Addie's handwritten notes, it says that she will be checking out later that day. Okay, so where is she? Anyway, I'm not going to find it. Shooting victims would have sent to the nearest trauma center. Depends on how they would have been triaged by EMS. The rest would have been sent wherever to avoid swamping ERs. Got to run. Chat with you later. All have a great day. Okay. Well, that's a good note to sign off on. Anyway, take good care, everybody. Oh, bye. Bye, Linda. I'll see if I can dig up that thing and I'll send it to you. I think I sent it to somebody in an email, so I probably should be able to find it again. Take good care. Thank you for joining me, and we'll keep plugging away. God bless you all. God bless the 23.